All right, the long-awaited, mostly for Tyler, return of talking about Jujutsu Kaisen in this channel.
If you joined us for our first one, that was like a month or so after I had read.
We did three. We right? Or do
Uh, so now it's been
yeah?
this is our third one. So now
This
it's
is our
been
third
4 months
one.
since I've read the Shibuya arc.
This is not good. You went way ahead of what I could talk, and then we
I
created a time discrepancy.
I read an arc, sir. That is perfectly normal.
Well, yes, but we can't talk about a whole arc in one chapter unless we go a very long time. Trust me, I've done this before with the One Piece talks. Uh,
Oh,
Such is life. Maybe we'll schedule these better. We bring this up because we were going over some of the events that happened, and we couldn't remember a lot of the characters' names or, like, why they showed up. So, luckily, though, I have foresight. I'm like, hey, I may not fully remember what happened in the first chapter of the section we're talking. So, I take notes. So, I
yeah,
got.
I should take notes.
Yeah, maybe. My notes aren't even that long. I just take like a bullet point or two for each chapter for the things I want to bring up. And we're starting on chapter 101. So last time we talked, we discussed how cool the start of the Shibuya arc was and how much I was liking it. And Tyler was like, oh boy, you haven't seen nothing yet. And like, when he says that, it could mean anything. Like maybe one cool thing happens, maybe it's getting overhyped a little bit. I am here to report that Tyler was absolutely right. The second half of this arc is actually insane. Um, there was points where I was reading and I was discording Tyler, and I just couldn't keep turning pages. Like I was getting so hurt by the content that I just didn't want this life to keep going on. It was tough.
It's weird. I was like, oh, that's gonna be sad. And then 4 months later, I'm like, Willer's like really sad one day. I'm like, what happened? And I was like, oh, it finally happened.
Yeah, so okay, taking it from the top, we start this section. A lot of so what happened last time? That's actually what I'm unprepared to talk about. What we left off on? What was like the main? So Fushiguro's dad was unleashed, and I think that's resolved in this section. God, I don't remember what happens in that first half of the arc. Now that I think about it.
They kind of just show up. We get the
Oh,
backstory for Megumi's father. We,
well. That was the arc previous, right? That was like the in between arc.
oh yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
however, what happened? The main point of the last section is Gojo's captured, so they have
Yeah,
him in this
yeah.
weird cube, and now all the characters know that, and multiple people are rushing to go save Gojo, but also multiple people were rushing to get to Itadori. So Jogo and Mahito, the two big curses, were chasing down
They're,
Itadori.
they're having a race, and Chozo's a part of it as well.
Yes, and so we open off with Chozo running into Itadori, and this is the guy who Itadori Nobara killed his brothers. So he's got like he looks so much different than his brothers, which is why like they look a lot more monstrous than he does. And I don't know if that's explained.
I mean, based off of what we're talking about, so later on in some of the arc, it's revealed that one of his parents was like a human,
Yeah,
and the other was like the other was a spirit.
yeah,
So I think that explains why.
they're just inbred.
Yeah.
So that's the fight starts, but it's interrupted by May versus a curse, and like the main thing about that I took away from the May fight is that she's got this cool power where she traps you in a coffin, and then there's like a countdown before you die, and the
No,
curse,
that's what the curse did.
that is what the curse does, right? And May just
Yeah.
keeps escaping each time that happens, and she pretty much fights by kamikazing crows at the enemy, and these are like the least interesting characters of the arc because I forgot. Tyler had to remind me, and I'm the one who read it more recently, that the whole reason they're here is that they're the upperclassmen who are, or grade 1 sorcerers who are testing Itadori to go up a grade. And then for Fushiguro, it's that one guy who got the shit beat out of him last section, I think, by Megumi's father, whose name is Toji. I wrote that one down. Okay, we're good.
Ooh.
So, okay. Chapters 103 to 105 is the Itadori versus Blood Brother.
Oh my god, that's such a long fight.
I know fights in this don't tend to be that long, but this was a banger. So my favorite sections, there's this moment where Itadori jumps to make himself like a easy target for the blood bullet, but that's
Mhm.
so he can like, I know you're gonna shoot me if I jump over here, so I know where you're gonna shoot at least, and then I can dodge it.
He
And
does like the twist.
yeah, I that was something that really stuck out to me. The blood guy, something that this series is doing really well is using a simple power in very good ways. So the blood guy does all sorts of things like hyper condensed bullets. He's hardening his own blood. There's like blood mechanics within his own body to where like if he does things too hard, he has a chance of like running out of blood or developing something called thrombosis, which I don't even know what that is, but that's brought up. So like, there's a cool back and forth of the guy showing you blood techniques and Itadori getting up close and personal. One of my favorite sections is when they run into the bathroom so that the sprinklers start raining down so that the blood guy can't shoot blood anymore, so they have to get to close combat. So even
Yeah,
though
and this is where Mekamaru shows up on that part too, and Mekamaru starts talking shit.
yeah, Mekamaru has an interesting role in this arc where like he's dead but he's still showing up and doing things.
Yeah.
Which I appreciate. I remember when Mekamaru died, I was like, oh, they just got us invested in this character, and now he's already gone. And that was a bit of a bummer. So
It's interesting. Mekamaru kind of has a resemblance to Robot from Invincible.
you know, when I was reading, and I know you were reading these around the same time, but even I had that feeling. Um, yeah, and they both like a normal girl, and I don't remember. Does the girl like Robot back in Invincible as far as I watched?
Uh, I think they start flirting a little bit, but it just makes me wonder: is this character going to come back in this like in a similar way to Robot? They are essentially the same character.
Because in this one, I get the feeling that I think that her name is Maki, the blue-haired girl. She actually does have a fondness for Mekamaru, so like he is not necessarily barking up the wrong tree here. It's working for him. But I mean, he died, so I guess that's the end of that.
Man, that bathroom drawing! I know we don't. I don't know if you're screen sharing like
You're
that
talking,
bathroom scene.
yeah. You're talking about page 14 and 15. I should screen share it. We're not gonna record
16 and 17.
it. Oh yeah, that's fantastic. I was talking about the page before where they're squared up.
Oh yeah, that's a good one
Some
too.
of this art looks fantastic. Let me actually.
Our art is top tier.
It can be right. We were actually also talking about how sometimes it gets really confusing to see what's going on. But usually, I think the art, his name is Gigi. I still don't know how to say it, but he's really good at using 3D space, which is something I really value in a battle series. I think it's something JoJo's does really well, for example. So I appreciate that because like Itadori on paper should be such a boring fighter, right? He just shows up, he somehow gets close to you with his insane speed, and then he's just hitting you with black flashes.
He does double punches.
I know he brought that one back for later in this arc, but okay. So then we get to the stretch of chapters that's Nanami, Maki, and
Wait. I'm so sorry. I forgot the part where Itadori locks himself in a bathroom stall
yeah, that was
and then
great.
drop kicks him out of it.
Dude, I think drop kicks are my all-time favorite attack. Like, it'll always get your blood pumping when you see a good drop kick.
Right, I think that's inspired by Rey Mysterio in everybody's childhood.
Indeed. You know what? That might be it. A nice 619, I think it's called. So they fight this weird guy that just summons a bunch of fish. And like this fight is where I was like, I have no idea what's happening because the old guy has this attack, and I still don't know if I fully understand it. He puts you in into like a 24 frames a second drawing, and then like manipulates that somehow. Hold on, what did I write about it? I just didn't write an explanation. I just don't think I ever got it. Like, do you know who I'm talking about? The old guy?
Old guy.
It's in chapter 107, 108. It's Nanami, Maki, and this old guy fighting the fish guy who's in the domain where he just summons endless fish.
Oh, yeah, there's that weird squid. Yeah, the guy who paints people and punches them.
Yeah, is that what's happening? I don't know,
Yeah,
man.
he like I think it's explained. He captures them in like a photo.
Yeah, there's like something about 24 frames, and like he captures one of those frames.
He's an animator.
Yeah,
So,
okay.
He's an animator, and he draws each like it's some like it's not like he's drawing them.
No, he's like freezing them in a moment in time.
Yeah, and he's talking about 4K and frames per second.
Whoosh, right over my head. I like, in the context of a manga, none of this made sense to me. I look forward to this one being animated. I did like the fight.
Like he's literally talking about animation in a manga.
It's domain expansion. So like knowing that this is very inspired by Bleach, which is funny because the only thing Tyler says about Bleach is that it's a terrible show based on that one animation.
Yeah, that's a funny animation though.
It's like a YouTube thing. But you can tell where the Bleach influence comes in because now I look at domain expansions, it's like people's bankais, and I like seeing people's defenses to it. Simple Domain, I think, is the one that comes up often. And so the fish guy puts them into domain, and they're kind of holding themselves like they're holding steady. But then Toji shows up out of nowhere, and that's like a great stretch of chapters where he is just bodying this fish person with no energy. Like I need to know how these people are able to be superhuman without having superhuman powers, because that's just straight up what it is.
Yeah. So hey, you skipped 106.
I did. What happened to 106? I wrote no note about it.
That's because the only thing that happens in 106 is we get the introduction of the shrimp fish person that they're fighting in those characters.
Yeah, pretty much.
But the very beginning, we see some Sakuna action, which Chozo is about to kill Itadori, and then Sakuna appears in the mind of Chozo.
Mm-hmm.
And we get this, at that moment, a memory was born inside Chozo's brain of a past event that never happened.
Yes, okay, so, I mean, let's get into it now, because there's no point in delaying it. People theorize that Itadori's true, like, ability is that he can insert memories into your mind. So the whole, like, Toto being his brother thing is, like, played for a gag, right? Like, haha, Toto's such a funny guy. But it's brought up so many times in the story where, like, the person who Toto comes in with later is like, wait, are they actually brothers? People are theorizing that, like, he's inserting it. But then, like, that's not the only time. Remember the guy with the dog in the last portion of the arc? Where he, like, sees his life flash before his eyes before Itadori beats the shit out of him? Like, people are theorizing that's another level. Like, he's putting memories in your mouth and, like, in your mind and freezing you.
But that guy knew that dog.
Did he know that dog?
Yes, that was his dog.
But that's what he says in the flashback. It's a memory that never happened. He probably never had a dog, dude.
No, he had a dog. He's like, why are you here? He's seeing his life flash before his eyes.
Maybe.
So, but in
I think there's something. I think there's something to this Itadori memory. The funny part is there's 60 more chapters of manga that people have read that we haven't. That has probably been deconfirmed or confirmed by now. So we're just theorizing here.
The Toto thing also in the anime, you have to remember, like, they do a flashback sequence.
Yeah, they actually also letterbox the screen, right? Like they put, like
they're just
bars.
It's like a slice of life. They've been bros, and he's asking out the girl.
Yes. So, like, I don't know, man.
So
there's something to it.
Would that be? I don't know if that's just a stylistic thing, or is that something Sakuna's doing?
It could be a Sakuna ability, right? Because it implies that Sakuna is doing it because he's protecting Itadori here from dying.
Mm-hmm.
It's tough. I don't know. But that aside, the fight shows up. Toji shows up. He pretty much kills the shrimp guy, and then he starts testing Fushiguro in a couple of chapters. But at the same time, more or less, Jogo shows up and just sets Nanami on fire, which is like, I didn't like this as someone whose favorite character in this is Nanami. I didn't like him being just instantly set on fire in chapter 111. And little did I know that this was not the end of the suffering for my boy. It's bad. Oh, I found the page where they explain this guy's ability, I think.
Man, just the part where in chapter 109, when they're still inside the domain and like they're trying to escape, and he opens the hole and Toji just like crawls out of it as they're trying to escape.
The page paneling there is really cool because he's coming in like inverted.
Yeah.
It looks really cool. It's like he's coming in from like a pool of blood almost.
He just takes the weapon from her, doesn't he? It's
because they're both cursed weapon fighters.
Yeah.
Which is very badass. But, so here's the explanation for the frame guy's ability. So that's in 111. And, it's like something about tracing targets' movements in 24 frames and then doing something with it. It's called, projection sorcery. By dividing 1 second into 24 frames and using one's field of view as an angle, the user can trace the predetermined sets of movements. While the technique is activated, anything touched by Naobito's palm must also abide by the 1 per 24 FPS rule when moving. Failure to do so will cause instability in their movement and result in staying frozen for 1 second. However, there is a risk. The predetermined course of action cannot be adjusted once started. In addition, if the trajectory of the movement or the laws of physics are ignored excessively, the user will freeze as well. So I think rereading this, I think if it's like if he touches you and you now move too fast, if you move faster than 24 frames a second, you get frozen in time for 1 second.
So that I learned this actually since I went to the Disney campus last week.
Okay.
Old school like animation used to be done using this like projection thing where they would have multiple panels.
Yeah.
And so they would have like the background layer, another background layer, and then they would have like the animation layer. So it would be like Goofy or like Mickey walking along this path that's like still frame, and they would have to like take like screenshots of it as they would move along, and they could only do it for so many frames per like panel or something.
Right. Now,
so it's literally just an old school animator guy.
No, I get, like, animation is done in 24 frames, so I get that. The part that I, like, needed to wrap my head around, it's like, okay, if you move faster than 24 frames a second, I think that's my takeaway. You freeze, and then he can just destroy you once you're frozen. I think that's what he was doing in that fight. It's kind of weird to explain that so late, because you see, this is, like, 4 chapters into him doing that shit where that's explained. So it is a bit confusing to go through that. Powers in this can get pretty Hunter Hunter-y. That is definitely also the other inspiration.
They are so Hunter Hunter-y, and they don't like. Here's the problem I think I have is they try to explain the powers in this anime, and in Hunter Hunter they're just like, oh yeah, they get to do that.
No, in Hunter Hunter sometimes they will like. I mean, you've seen. I'm sure you remember the page where it's just all text. Like there's some pages of Hunter Hunter that are straight up memed in the Succession arc that is just like all text explaining abilities and people's mind processes. In this one, the problem maybe is that they explain it a little too fast, and it's like if you didn't get it, then you're too bad. Try to keep up. And that's just how I just moved on. I didn't try to linger on these things too much. I was like, I'll get it eventually.
We get to see Jogo's like real strength in that 111. Yes. I think it's like he shows up and just devastates them without even trying.
It's crazy because like Jogo, the first time we really see him, he's getting bodied by the strongest character in the series. So you kind of underrate how scary he is as a curse. And it's funny because Jogo just can't catch a break. He feeds the 10 fingers to Itadori and then has to fight Sukuna later. And
No, the 2 crazy girls fed him.
No, but then he feeds him more fingers afterwards.
So I think those girls, I think one of them's power is she takes a selfie and it like traps them in another dimension or teleports
Yeah,
them.
no, that one's a JoJo ability. That one's in part 4. It's
Yeah,
Kira's
it's
ghost
just
dad. But those two girls, as I recall, they're Geto's. They're like the two girls Geto's saved from that village that he killed everyone. It's like the first night that he broke bad.
Yeah.
And I think they've looked up to him ever since, and they hate the fact that he's not actually Geto anymore. I think one of them controls ice, the blonde, but I think that's another character. Some of the designs are kind of blending together near the end. As you can tell, we're not perfect at understanding what's happening here. But anyways, Sukuna wakes up, and he just kills...
Dude, yeah, the arm is just gone.
Yeah, he's just instantly disarmed Jogo, and then he kills one of the girls instantly. The black-haired one. And it's like, wow, Shonen Jump's getting away with some gore with this series. Like, he turns it all into cubes, and we find out this arc, I think it's explained earlier, but we really get to see it this arc, that Sukuna's main ability is to... Oh, no, he kills both girls, right, Jesus Christ. He can slice and dice like it's no problem, and that is his main fighting style. But he can also kind of just do whatever he wants, because... as he's fighting Jogo, he's also copying some of his fire techniques. So it just seems like Sukuna is just overpowered, and it is what it is.
The slicing of the heads off is great. I'm just like, Jesus.
Welcome to Cube World, fucker. I really like the Toji and Fushiguro fight, and especially the end where he asks for the name. And Fushiguro answers with his mother's family name, or basically he doesn't call himself a Zenin, and Toji gets to see that his son grew up to like, he sold his son off to the Zenin, but he's glad that his son has rejected that and is still his own person.
He sold his son to Gojo.
He was going to sell them off to the Zenin. I'm almost positive about that. But Gojo, I think, took over from there. Oh man, this is stuff from 4 months ago for both of us, because it was the intermediary arc where we get Gojo's flashback. Near the end of it, he's talking about his son. Man, I want to get that clarified, but I also don't want to pause the recording to do it, so we're just going to have to move on.
Yeah,
but anyways,
so I'm
he just
reading
kills
the
himself.
fight with all the rabbits.
Yeah,
he has to. That's how strong he is.
I do like how he knew his time was limited. He just wanted to test his son, and once he was adequately satisfied, he just kind of offs himself, which I suppose kills the body that was inhabiting his soul.
He was a puppet.
Yeah.
He was a puppet, yeah.
But I'm guessing that also kills the... Yeah, you see it in the next chapter. The
the face changed.
Alright, what's next?
Oh, man.
Geto's remnants move on with it. I like this. Yeah, the Geto's remnants are kind of like talking about what to do based on the fact that Geto's not himself anymore, and they all come to like different conclusions. This is also a flashback, it looks like, before the two girls died. This second year, who is just... He's kind of like the coward character of the group, but he does it in a fun way where he's like, oh man, I hope that these guys don't fight us. I hope they just stay there, or like talk as long as you can so I can try to figure out a way that we can get out of this fight. He's the one with Panda. I really like that character. He's funny.
He's also like being up for promotion, isn't he?
I think so. No, I think the other one who was up for promotion was the one with the beanie.
Oh, yeah, the guy.
Who got the shit beat out of him. He's still alive, but he's just out of the arc now.
Yeah, and then we end this chapter with Sakuna beating the shit out of Jogo.
Yes, which leads to just an insane chapter where they're fighting and stuff, but then, like, Sukuna drops a meteor and it hits them with the nobody move or I kill you, which is just... This guy, the way that Sukuna is written is really commendable. It's so intimidating and scary, and he's waiting for the meteor to get lower and lower, and I like how no character challenges him on this. They're just like, we're not going to test it, we're not going to move until he says, he gives us the go, and then he does, and the meteor drops.
Did he play a game of chicken with them?
He did, yeah. He just, don't move, not yet, go! And then they just get the fuck out of there. And then we get the end of the fight where he starts he starts using fire attacks, and just eventually kills Jogo, as I recall. There's a lot of cool paneling in 116 as they're fighting. I like them both, like, setting up the attacks with their hands, their standoff with, like, it looks like a bow and arrow versus, like, a blast. And, I feel bad, like, Jogo brings up some interesting things. Like, he's, like, a cool stand-in for curse culture. Like, I feel like he's one of the best written curses where you understand that they're not human, but they're also, like, fighting to survive in their own way. It's like, we are what we are, but we're not going to bend over backwards just because humans are the dominant forces. We're going to create this world of curses, even if I have to die for it. Because, like, Jogo summons Sukuna, and it gets him killed, but that's a sacrifice he was willing to take.
Really interesting. Like, we don't get a steady progression of power scaling characters, really. Like,
No,
we're introduced to the in-game bad guys, like, from the start.
It is all over the place. Yeah, you get the peak right early. It's like when Mihawk shows up in One Piece in chapter 40, and it's like, oh, okay. So, like,
you have to keep fighting Mihawk.
You see, like, a top-tier character, and then it's like, okay, we're going to work our way there. Sukuna and Gojo are, like, the story pretty much tells you they're the two strongest characters, and they're introduced very early, and you just have to see.
Yeah, but we also have, like, Jogo and, like, the other, like, Geto.
You have Hanami.
We have Mahito, Hanami. Like, they're all, like, way stronger than the other kids are, and they just have to keep fighting to, like, get up to that point.
It's tense, though. Like, there's a good tension here because people actually die in this series, and, like, maybe some people die too much, you know? Maybe there didn't need to be so much death this arc, but that's fine.
The drawing in this chapter gets really good when he starts using the flame techniques and copying them.
Yeah, it looks like the paneling and the art is fantastic in that chapter.
Page 6 and 7 in 116, he uses this flame arrow.
Yeah.
And I remember messaging you, I was like, dude, this looks like the flame arrow from Maple Story whenever you used to play, like, the fire poison mage.
Dude.
They used to have this old skill that was like flame arrow, and it looks exactly like that.
Is Gage a Maple Story fan as well as a Bleach fan?
Maybe, probably. I don't
know. So, earlier in an arc, Fushiguro was like, okay, I'm gonna fight Sukuna, I have something up my sleeve. And it's like, was he just being stupid or no? And then you find out, no, he did have a trick up his sleeve. Because to fight, like, one of the other curse users, he summons a eight-handled sword Divergent Scylla Divine General Mahoraga. Basically, this Chad-ass demon. He summons him to an exorcism. And that's a really cool mechanic where it's like, you can summon a curse, and you can try to exorcise it. If you don't, you die. And
like, we're not there. Like, I want to talk about that too, but we're skipping Jogo's death.
I talked about Jogo's death.
Oh shit! Was I spacing out while catching up to the Jogo's death?
Yes, this is why I have my bullet points. I know which parts to skip over.
Shut up!
I didn't mention with Jogo's death that he starts crying in the end. He's like, "What is this?" And next page, he's just dead. And Zuko's like, "I don't know, man. LOL." Like,
all right, yes, the shadow demons then.
Yes, the shadow demons. So
the Divergent Scylla Divine General Mahoraga.
They got quite the name, but that's I really like that mechanic of I can summon something and I won't die. I'm not like I think it's stated that they're in suspended non-death until the exorcism's completed. So it is this ultimate suicide bomb where it's like anyone in the vicinity has to deal with this guy too. Chances are we're all gonna die from it. But that's fine. Unfortunately, Sukuna, and it's cool because this guy kind of puts up a fight against Sukuna. It's like, I mean, like, it's not the greatest fight, but Sukuna has to think a little and doesn't insta-kill him, and that's about as much as any character can say.
He had to think for a second.
He had to domain expand to kill this guy, which, okay, I have some things to say about this domain expansion because it's horrifying. Pretty much anything in the vicinity of this domain expansion just dies. And some powers in media are just too fucking strong, man. And this is one of those powers.
People just die because I feel like the only thing that's gonna counter it is just like I don't know. I feel like it's gonna just be a shonen-esque power that's kind of okay, sure, like Naruto becoming god or some shit. Like you have to have that to counter this.
The way, so like, can I don't know if you can use simple domain to just not get cut. They probably explain that you can't, because like they talk about in 119, they talk about like the way this works. So it forms differs from other types of domain expansions that it doesn't create a separate space using a barrier. So there's no barrier, you can walk in and out. The ability to realize one's innate domain without using a barrier is akin to an artist painting a masterpiece, not on canvas but on air. That's very cool. Furthermore, by allowing an escape route, a binding vow is formed, which vastly increases the guaranteed hits effective area with a maximum radius of 200. So, basically, the way I take this is you can escape this domain, and it's like I love this in any power system. Hunter x Hunter is the first one that I think did it really well, but I think this is also doing it well. Where like, if your power has a weakness and you tell people about your power, it's stronger. You can do more with it. You're making this sacrifice for it. So by being able to escape, the radius is much larger. It doesn't say that you can't use simple domain expansion to negate its effect. So probably, and like, I think there's another anti-domain expansion technique. There's like that one that only one clan knows, and then there's that other one that I think multiple people know. But anyways, I think that's how you would counter this for now. However, in 119, as when the domain expansion starts, there's this page 4 and 5 have like, it shows Shibuya, and then it shows like kanji-esque cutting effects, like with the paneling.
So yeah, like his attack just constantly it talks about his cut types.
Yeah, it does the chopping and the dicing continuously. The dismantle and cleave is what are they called, and it does a different one depending on if something's living on or non-living. And then like, I was just really upset because like this page of all the survivors hiding out, they're like, oh, we're gonna be fine, we're safe, and they just start disintegrating. And it's like, this is too much. This is the point where I was like, this has been a very dark arc. I think this is beyond the realms of shonen. We're getting into torture porn at this point.
Oh, it's fun. Like, I read all of Chainsaw Man, and I thought that was kind of dark with people dying, and I'm like, oh my god, like Jujutsu.
Chainsaw Man has the gun devil going off, and that is an amazing chapter, right? This feels darker too because it's Itadori's body doing it. Because it's like, because these people in Shibuya have suffered all night, right? We've been doing this whole arc where like anyone who makes it, it's gonna be a miracle. And it's just like, nope, no one's gonna make it. We're gonna kill fucking everybody. And then he melts the motherfucker. And then that guy... So my understanding, at the end of the chapter, that one guy who has like luck powers...
I hate this guy.
He's a little shit. He's like, oh man, my luck never runs out. And I like his powers actually really neat. I wish we saw more of it because like it's not explained until now, I'm pretty sure. But
his luck had run out.
Every time he sees like a small miracle in the world, he builds up luck points basically that he cashes out. So I think he runs into the simple domain location and gets sliced. Is that what's happening?
No. Sakura just looks at him and slices his body vertically in two.
But Sakura tells him to be gone.
Yeah, and like the next page, you see the latter half of his body sliding off.
But I figure that's because he's stepping into the domain zone. He was outside the zone, and then he steps into it. Because you see Sakura walking out of the zone, and then this guy walks into that area. So I don't know.
Oh, so it lingers?
I think it was still lingering because it feels weird to me that Sakuna would be like, "Get out of here, you scramp," and then he kills him anyways. Or maybe it's because he said it out loud. He was thinking, and then he says, "Once again, I live." And Sukuna was like, "Nope, okay, you pushed your luck." That could be it. I don't know. Maybe the anime will make it more clear.
Yeah, like I don't know. Like you see the cut on him, like at the very bottom, right after he says that start to form.
Yeah.
I think if the domain was still around, he would have been disintegrated.
True. I think yeah, it looks like one cut.
Also, are we gonna talk about that like god tier artifact that he just throws aside?
Yeah, the wheel of
The, the wheel of all combat?
yeah. So was it the wheel? I thought that was like the curse's ability, but maybe it's the wheel that was doing it. Where like
I think
the curse's ability is really simple, and I think that like it's actually kind of a bummer that like the strongest curse we've seen so far, aside from like the big bads, is like my powers I can adapt to anything. That's it's kind of a generic power, but I don't know
so.
if that's attached to the wheel.
Furu's incantation of the 10 sacred treasures, and that wheel represents a complete cycle of harmony. I bet this Shikigami's power is the ability to adapt to any and all phenomenon, kind of like a late throw. Okay, so
So it
I
is the
guess.
Shinigami's power. The wheel must just be a cool thing. I don't know. I don't know if that'll become anything. And then the most fucked up thing, like this got my stomach going, where like Sukuna frees Itadori so that he can just look at what happened, and Itadori just immediately freaks out. And
Yeah.
we get into some dark stuff here, where I think this is easily our protagonist at the lowest we've seen him. He just sees himself as a murderer, a walking nuke, and like, yeah, because in the beginning of the story, I think in the first two or so chapters, Gojo asks him, are you going, like, should we let you live? Should we not just execute you now? And I think Itadori's mindset back then is like, yes, I'm dangerous to be alive. There's this demon in me, right? But I can save more lives. Like, and my grandpa wanted me to help people and have a death worth, like, a death where I'm proud of. And to Itadori, that death is after he saved as many people as he can, which I think is a really cool starting point. But at this point, being alive has killed thousands of people tonight. So it's
Mhm.
like, is it worth it to be alive? And like, he just looks dead after the event. It's I don't even know what to make of this. We haven't gotten to a point where he's like reflected on this very much, because from this point on, Itadori's like in every fight that's ongoing. So we haven't had like a quiet moment with him since.
Yeah, but also, I mean, at the latter half of this chapter, I understand why it's so hard. Is like we get the
Oh
breakdown
man.
of Itadori at the beginning and his mentor who saved or like the first mentor of Itadori in the latter half.
Yeah, it's
Like
yeah, exactly. Oh my
this
god.
paneling is just Nanami half burnt crisp walking down the hall.
When he walked by and you see Mahito pop out from the curtain, I got my stomach dropped, because like
I hate Mahito.
he is such a hateable villain, and but isn't that good? Don't you like you want that? You want that from your series. You want people to really hate their villains, and Mahito, I definitely hate. I have something to say about Mahito near the end, because I am upset about one thing that this played out as. I also like Nanami reflecting on, like, in that flashback with Gojo, Nanami and this other guy, like, were friends, and that guy died, and that's part of the reason why Geto, like, turned to the dark side. Because he's like, oh, I'm watching more of my allies die. And that's why
Mhm.
Nanami left the world for a little while before he came back recently. Because he, like, quit and became a businessman for a while.
Yeah.
So he goes ham. He has like his last hurrah, but after he kills everyone, Mahito just taps him. Oh,
And
and then
I like
Itadori walks in as it happens too. It's so bad. Oh man. Oh
I like how he knows like what the right final words to say to him are.
yeah. He he is such a great fucking character, and he will be missed greatly. But there ain't coming back from that one. This one isn't a fake out
Just
death.
this final fight between
Mahito and
Mahito and
Itadori.
Itadori, yeah. Like
It's great.
it's so damaging to Itadori that every weapon Mahito uses is a cursed human, like a human he's cursed.
Yes, there's that portion where like Itadori runs into like two humans. He's like, "Hey, you guys got to get out of here!" And then they turn into weapons, and Itadori is just so sick of it. I think it's in chapter 122, and like The
Mahito
way
fights in such a fucked up way. Like he in 121, he has this like huge body repel that he throws at him, like this huge worm looking thing,
it's
and
like
then he pops out of its mouth and just like boo, and then just punches him in the face.
that was fantastic. I forgot, like, so it's cool because Mahito, man, Mahito's powers are fucked up. He has one hit kill hand, which is usually, I don't like that as a power. It has to be used very carefully. Like, in JoJo's Part 4, you have Kira, and he can kill you with one touch, but he's slower than the main characters. And here you have Mahito, who can kill in one touch, but Itadori specifically is immune to it because of Sukuna. So it's like, it's tough to write those powers, but like, I think Mahito is a pretty simple power, basically. He can take humans and disconfigure them, and he can change his own body. But the way that the writer handles that is so brilliant. Like, there's so many angles in which Mahito uses his powers, and it just builds onto that hate, because he's using innocent lives to power himself up, and his attitude, I think, is what completes the character, where he's just so nonchalant about it all. And he never changes for a second. He like never lets up this incredibly infuriating person that he is. Like his
In
personality.
122, when he has the two humans and he just climbs out of one of them,
Yeah,
like he just climbs out of another human,
like a sleeve. It's a fucking human sleeve.
Yeah, he's.
Ugh.
And then he
Ugh.
turns it into a sword, and the shit's just.
It's gross. He's such a gross opponent. He makes my skin writhe. When he ran into Nobara, I was like, oh god, not this now. I couldn't take these important deaths back to back. But
And then we have a flashback section, which that confused me for a bit.
Yeah,
But it's important because we see him like talking shit to Jogo, and he does like the split face and splits into two different versions of himself.
yes, so what was nice is at least Nobara isn't fighting the one that can one-touch kill.
Yeah.
So that's nice, but they do a cool little switcheroo with that. The Nobara flashback left me a little confused as well, right? Because it's like,
No. The Nobara part is okay. So we have black bordering into white bordering. It's not a flashback. Nobara's fight is not a flashback.
No, it's
just
not.
him
It's not.
splitting up. Mahito splitting up is the flashback, and then it goes to 2 hours later. Nobara and Itadori are fighting Mahito at the same time.
Exactly. No, that's not the... Yeah, I was confused about that the first time I read it, I remember. But we get a Nobara flashback during the Nobara fight, but I think that comes a little later. I don't really have notes aside from the flashback during, like, 123 to 126, and, to me, it's like, what was the point of that, like, flashback of Nobara's childhood? I couldn't really gauge why it was placed at this point of the story. And I tried to look it up, and people were also kind of unsure. It just kind of happened. My takeaway of it is just the person that she is. Like, it reinforces her personality. She's such a unique person. She's very narcissistic. She's very cocky and sassy, and that's just who she is. And the flashback, I think, builds on that. That was my main takeaway. Like, she sees...
No, man, it's because she dies.
She sees everyone else as crazy, which is kind of sweet, but because she's the actual crazy one. But it's just kind of fleshing it out, and yeah, maybe it's just there to garner some sympathy before she gets killed. In chapter 126, I think it happens.
I mean, you don't want to think she did, but she might be.
There's some really cute panels though in that flashback, like the one where she steals the backpack from the kids. For someone who draws such horrific things, he can also draw kids so like cutely.
Speaking of horrific things, I don't know if you're screen sharing, but check out what I just said. Yeah, like. Did you see what that panel that I sent you?
Yes.
Every human Itadori interacts with is already warped in that fight.
Yeah, it is. They're all taking time bombs, and it's so dark. But I am sharing screen, by the way, so you should jump on. But
you are not sharing screen.
Haha. How about that?
But yeah, the entire fight with them as they are going through it is rough. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to linger on too much. It's great. But about Nobara dying, she's not dead because you see her in like the after state of her body later, and it's just like she got her eye blown out. She's fine.
Only half her face gone.
Yeah. Look, man, people can survive some rough things.
Nanami was just there like that.
Yeah, exactly. And then
But that's not what we're here to talk about. We're talking about the next panel that fucks you up right after it, where he gets fucking black flashed by Mahito.
that is so good, dude. Mahito's doing the thing. Oh
He
my
does mental damage to Itadori and the reader.
Emotional damage. Yeah, he's hitting him because Black Flash was like a technique that Nanami was the best at prior to Itadori. So Itadori was kind of living up to Nanami with this move. And now the person who killed Nanami is using it to just toss Itadori's ass around. Like he's ping-ponging through the world. It's fantastic. And then, like, Mahito goes in what I would consider is his peak villain speech, where he is just doing, like, maximum villain speak. You're all pathetic. I'll kill you all. You're all insects. Like, I'm a curse. I'll do whatever the fuck I want. He's going off. He's Homelandering it up. But Toto shows up, and it's fantastic. Man.
Pick up, brother.
This series is definitely not without its shonen tropes, and this one definitely has like the last second save. But man, it feels so good.
He's been showing up the whole time. He's been Saitama-ing it.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think enough losses have happened to the main characters to when these good things swing around. I'm like, that's fair. It's only fair that they.
Yeah, like thank you.
Yes, thank you. Genuinely, I couldn't take anymore. So Toto and Itadori are no stranger to beating the shit out of people together, and they go in a cool fight. Toto can be touched and killed, but he's just so clever with how he uses Boogie Woogie. And this in chapter 127, there's a page that's very reminiscent of Gon using John Ken Rock, like his Nen ability, where he like traps you close by, and then he does the big punch. And he hits him with a big black flash.
John.
And then you see him, you see Tadori thinking of Nanami after hitting that bombast black flash. Just like, yeah.
Sparks of black do not choose who to bless.
That is fantastic. But you get the Maki kind of thinking about Mekamaru, which is, yeah, she's got some emotions about it. The whole crew showing up. The way they're introduced into this arc, I'm not a huge, big fan of, but I can talk about that a little later. For this stretch of chapters, there's some page layout things that I think are a little weird. Toto's also hitting some black flashes. People are posing. It's great, but it's just a lot of action. I think the main thing I wanted to talk about here is when Toto uses the 0.2 second domain expansion. No, rather, not Toto doesn't do it. Mahito uses domain expansion for 0.2 seconds, so that way Sukuna doesn't necessarily counteract him, but he's able to instantly hit Toto with a with his transfiguration technique, which I thought was a really clever use. I like when the bad guys are using the good guys' powers, and that's exactly.
You forgot about the human skin armor he puts on.
I mean, at this point, we can't talk about every fucked up thing Mahito does, or we would genuinely be here for an extra 15 minutes because he does so many awful things. But Toto loses his hand here, so he can no longer boogie woogie. But he finds one clever way to do it later, which is to
he starts ham boning.
He claps Mahito's hand, which swaps him with Itadori, and then he gets black flash in the face. But at this point, it's later confirmed that he can boogie woogie no longer. He does a cool fake out near the end of the fight, but it is just a fake out. Now, if he could clap his ass cheeks, I wonder if that'll work for a boogie woogie.
I just think he should start ham boning and start slapping his body.
Yeah, he could, but I feel like that's just not how it works because he would do it. Mahito, when Mahito goes into a final form, at this point I was like, okay, I need this to wrap up soon because
he's Frieza final form now.
Yeah, it's a very cool looking form, but I was like, oh god, how much more of this fight do we have? Because
dude, this fight is 10 chapters,
which is long for Jujutsu Kaisen fights.
It's like, long for anything.
It's long for any manga fight where it's just 10 chapters of pure combat. Like there wasn't even there was only the Nobara break, in between, but aside from that, it's all fighting.
Like, I can't imagine reading this week to week.
See, I was reading this, I was like, I don't think I would have had as much fun with this arc week to week. Like, it would have been crazy, but, like, it would have been crazy to read about it, talk about it, and be like, oh man, what's going to happen next, right? But there was an equal amount of craziness to, like, you flip to the next chapter, and it's just more pain, and there is no stopping. And every time, like, I would stop for the night, I would pick it up the next night, turn on my iPad, be directly back into the more pain. Like, it was just never ending. But, yeah, I will say when Mahito transforms, he becomes a lot more physical. He's, like, doing less creative body transfiguration things, which up until, like, the very end is it's, like, it's not super interesting, because I think he's much better when he's doing...
I like how he does fake him out right there. He's like,
with the
I can still do it! JK.
An act of applause. It's, it has very much Hunter x Hunter vibes when, he's like, stupid ant, do you think I need hands to pray?
Oh, yeah. Like, that's what the powers do feel like a lot of this is Hunter x Hunter, but without as many of the restrictions and stuff. I mean, some of them has restrictions, like Nanami's power.
Yeah.
Oh, this part where it's like shows the wolf, rabbit, and the prey.
Yeah, that was fantastic.
And Itadori's hunting him down.
What a page, dude! This is incredible. I wonder why the Viz website has so many lines in these pages. That's weird. The app does not have that. Anyways, Itadori being like, yeah, you know what? I'm gonna kill you. Don't need a reason. I'm gonna hunt you down. One day people will look back on this and be like, yeah, no, he had a good reason to killing him. But Itadori just doesn't care. It's all revenge for him right now, but in a way that's so satisfying.
So before we move on much more, I want to talk about Mahito. Yeah. Well, no, we can talk about him after the end. We'll talk about it
because he's about to die. And okay, so Mahito gets killed here by Geto, and that's how he's written out of the story. Itadori doesn't get the final hit, so he gets kind of kill-stealed. What I don't like about this is that Mahito was such a despicable villain. We've been going on for like 5 or 10 minutes about like every little gross thing he does, because he gets under the reader's skin in a really effective way, and I think that's like a huge plus, right? But his power is incredibly overpowered, and I feel like we saw a lot of the extents of the body horror that you can do with this power. Like, I'm sure there's more creative things Gage can do with it, but like the moral of the story is I'm annoyed that the power is going to remain in the story because now Gedo has it, but Mahito isn't. It's like I wish that both the power and the character were removed from the story here. I think that would have been more finalizing, because at this point, I guess I am a little tired of seeing this kind of power set because it's been so prevalent throughout the story so far.
So, at the end of this chapter, yeah?
I don't know if you... That was my main thing with it, like... it's gonna be annoying when we have to deal with, like... Oh, now Geto also, if he touches people, they die. So it's going to be repetitive, I feel like, in the future. But without Mahito's personality, so it's going to feel lesser.
Yeah, and I mean, maybe this was Geto's power long, or maybe that's why everybody hated this pseudo-Geto guy before that. Like, maybe it's always been his power and he can't do it while Mahito's alive.
I don't know how that would work. The power system's loose enough to where I was like, everything makes sense, but also nothing makes sense.
Dude, I don't even know how reverse, curse, negative, positive, reverse, plus energy works.
You see, Tyler, curse energy cannot make positive energy, so therefore you have to multiply a negative energy by a negative energy to create a positive energy.
I didn't want to have to do algebra to read this manga.
But you do. You must.
Yeah, like...
You also have to know about animation techniques and all sorts of random bullshit.
So, at the end of this chapter, we talk about, like Mahito's death. Yeah. I don't understand why Mahito just randomly attacks him out of nowhere.
I think because he realizes that,
What makes him realize it?
It is true. So, I'm looking at I think it's chapter 133, 16-17. Yeah, he just kind of goes for the kill, and then doesn't explain himself, and then he just gets eaten.
Maybe a memory was born into him.
I I guess.
Like that is the only explanation, as a memory was born into him. But before we go on, I want to talk about Mahito for a second.
Yeah.
I really liked this character's development because this character, I like highlighting, they're the same as our main shonen protagonist. They're a shonen protagonist for the bad guys.
Yeah, they're
where he just kept getting stronger and like doing on the move super strong techniques on the fly as he was learning in
He's
combat.
got that protagonist creativity and that protagonist like expression and evolution, you know, like
But just wrote him to be a bad guy.
yeah. And you know, while we're talking about like cool things that the story is doing, I also think Sukuna just like shits on every other possession story I've seen in manga. Like, at least in these shonen series, like I think the main ones would be Bleach and Naruto, where it's like the character can go berserk under certain circumstances and they need to contain this power, but it's like, they eventually either contain it or they befriend it, right? And it's like that's not happening with Sukuna, because Itadori hates Sukuna. Sukuna's made like used his body to kill hundreds or thousands of people at this point, so it's like the actual execution of what it would be like if the main antagonist lives in the main protagonist. Like I think if you were to sell this series and like I was like, hey, you should read Jujutsu Kaisen, and they're like, oh, what's cool about it? I was like, well, it does this cool thing where the main antagonist lives in the protagonist. I think a lot of people would hear that and think of Naruto and be like, yeah, okay, that doesn't sound that special. But
Yeah, but
like,
Mahito's no Sasuke. Sasuke's a fucking weeb.
I mean, that's different. I'm talking more about Sukuna. It's like, I think you can agree with me that the way Sukuna is implemented is just so much different than all the ways that these things tend to go. Like, it's actually horrifying that he's in Itadori, and he's not like a boon to Itadori either. Like, the only positives he gives is that sometimes he'll make it so someone doesn't kill Itadori, and it's not even like... I guess there's also an angle of, like, if Itadori's life was ever actually truly threatened, he always has a pocket card that is Sukuna. Like, I think Sukuna will always pop up.
But remember, at the very beginning, him and Megumi are about to be killed. He turns into Sakuna, and then Sakuna kills that spirit, and then also tries to kill Megumi.
Yeah. Well, no, he actually...
He doesn't, because he figures out his shadow ability.
Well, I think he sees something in Megumi. Like, Megumi's fun for Sukuna, because he's got potential.
Because he has to summon the super strong demons?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he's got tricks up. I think he's got good potential, so that's why he likes him.
Alright, so let's talk about this chapter, 134. Go back to the first page.
Okay.
What the fuck is he talking about?
I don't know. He's talking about... So, there have been two other maximum techniques. One of them was Gojo's.
Purple.
And, I think purple's a maximum technique. And the other was, it was a character you wouldn't expect. It was like one of the blood... It was like the Blood Brother, I think, did a maximum technique. Regardless, what I don't understand is that he's like... Uzumaki is this technique where I use up every soul that I've stored up. Like, as far as I understood it.
Yeah.
He's like, if I use it, I can't use it again until I collect all the souls again. But then he just uses it this chapter. And it doesn't even kill the target.
Just casual.
Yeah, he just casually uses it, so I'm confused. It's like, so did you just lose everything you gained, or what? And I also don't understand what happens when he uses it. Because the earth shatters, but then, like... Did Sword Guy block it or some shit? Like, that doesn't seem right to me. Well, what actually happened in these panels?
Yeah, I don't know. He talks like it's hyping it up, and then he doesn't kill anybody with it.
He was like, I have new...
After he eats Mahito to do it? Like, Is he just talking shit like Toto was?
I don't know. Like... I don't want to linger on it too much, but I am very weirded out by just him explaining this technique, using it. It didn't seem to do much, and then I don't understand if he needs to recollect souls to do it again. Like, why would he just use it willy-nilly. Like, it felt very odd to me. In fact, the only part of this arc I dislike is these last chapters, where, like, all the allies show up, like, conveniently, like, no one else is left, it's just Geto and them, so they just kind of, it's like power of friendship moments where they're showing up and protecting him. Literally, one of the bad guys gets flipped into a good guy because of Itadori's mind magic, we're assuming, because it's not explained.
He turns people into broskies.
I guess so.
Imagine if he never met the broskies.
And then, what's his face? Geto's revealed to be a character called Noritoshi Kamo, who's allegedly 150 years old. He was a cursed user from back then. I think he's from the Heian area, which is the demons that he's summoning at the end. This whole part,
it doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't flow well. It's a little confusing. It's also like you go from intense tension to like all the good guys show up and like the flow of the combat gets weird as well. You get the blood brother fighting for Itadori, and you don't get an explanation for it. So if you didn't like read a Reddit thread and see the theory about Itadori's mind magic, this entire section is complete nonsense to you with the
girl who showed up from the flashback who is Geto's friend.
Yeah, and like I don't know how much I should care about her because she was in the story so little. So like there's just a lot of confusing decisions made in this section of the arc that I
And then we start talking about this world building, about how Japan's going to capitalize on cursed energy, and like we start doing world building in the middle of all this like intense emotional fighting we've just been doing.
It just feels weirdly paced and timed. I'm sure people were fine with the ending of this arc, but I do think compared to everything else, the ending of the arc is clearly the weak point to me. It's not like awful or anything.
And then this ending shit, like, because he ate Mahito, expended Mahito's energy using Ultimate Uzumaki, he gets to use something like by the barrier person who we learned about from Geto.
Christ,
and
yeah, like
Jogo's.
That was
Gojo's
so confusing
flashback.
to me. He like God, hold on. Oh my God, I don't understand I don't understand how. So I understand what he did, but not how. Basically, he had planted these seeds in people to turn them into curse users. So he turned like 1,000 Japanese citizens into curse users overnight.
So he says on 2 types of non-sorcerers who'd already been marked. So why can't he just say humans who have been marked by me? Like, that would have made that so much clearer. Like, he should call, like, he's making up names for humans.
Well, that's just his thing, right? I think that's fair because to him, he's a human, but he sees that difference between non-curse users and curse users because it was established earlier that non-curse users are actually a reason why there's so many curses. But doesn't the girl also rebutes that here? Where she's like, actually, that's not how it works.
Then he pulls a string apart.
Yeah, I think that's symbolism for.
No, that was I have broken the seal on the cursed objects.
Yeah. Basically, my takeaway: he has idol transfiguration. I don't know what the Tengen's barrier part is. Is she just confused?
Okay. No. Tengen's barrier is something that is like
Tengen?
You remember the vessel that we in Geto and Gojo's flashback?
Yes. So Tengen's
barrier. I think
barrier.
That's Tengen.
Yes, Tengen is that like star creature that like they transfer their consciousness, but because they exist, they create like a filter between curses. It's like they use Tengen's barrier to keep certain locations safe, and something to that effect. I would have to reread all the specifics, but I don't understand why Mahito uses Geto uses idol transfiguration, and then creates this symbol, and the girl's like, Tengen's barrier? No, this is... What is it? She doesn't explain. Rereading this is more confusing than the first time I read it.
No, it gets even more confusing. So he's like, the cursed objects that I provided are what's left of sorcerers I painstakingly made vows with a millennium ago. However, I did not only enter into contracts with sorcerers, but those vows became. But I did not. I did not only enter into contracts with sorcerers. Okay, what else did you enter into contracts with? I'm guessing cursed spirits?
Yeah.
Those vows became null when I obtained this body, which he's had for a long time, and he breaks the seal on his. Like, it doesn't make any sense because he's had the body and they're just now coming out. Is that what the ribbon he rips apart is?
Yeah, like, but those vows became null when I obtained this body. And then why does the girl freak out at that? And then he's just like, this is the future world now. Like, the cursed objects that I provided are what's left of sorcerers I painstakingly made vows with.
Yeah, I've got no clue what the fuck's going on.
Okay. I think he's saying that, like... Okay, hold on. I think I get it. All the cursed items he has are cursed items because they're storing sorcerers and curses that he made vows with. He's like, here's a vow that I made with you. You're gonna become a weapon, and, like, whatever, we have a vow. I obtained this body, and those are now null and void, so they can go back into being curses and cursed people.
Nope. I need a better YouTuber to explain this to me.
Yeah, all right.
Somebody who cares more about the story.
So as you guys can tell, we were keeping up with it until these last 3 chapters. Please leave a comment on what the fuck happened on the last chapter of this arc.
What the fuck is going on?
Anyways, the main takeaway is that he summons a bunch of curses from the Heian era, and now Japan's fucked. Because he... So, also another thing I was saying, he marked 1,000 people and then used idol transfiguration to turn them into curse users, I guess, because that's fair, I guess, because that gives you full control of the soul, so it's like awakening all these people's Nen abilities would be the equivalent.
4 things happen right here. He awakens a bunch of people, breaks the seal on cursed objects, 5 things. 6 things. He eats Mahito. He releases and nullifies all the spirit energy he's collected with Maximum Uzumaki.
Yeah, that's the worst one.
Which was what we're looking at right now, I'm assuming, is all those curses. Then he summons a bunch of curse users.
Yeah.
Breaks the seal on a bunch of cursed objects.
Okay, you said that one twice.
And then his body bursts apart into, like,
Yeah, what is actually bursting apart here? That's him in the middle. This is page 16, 17, and 136, and it looks like they're coming from behind him.
Why are they, like, what I'm not understanding is why they're just now coming out. What happens to make all these spirits leave his body? Because Geto could tame spirits. That's what his power was. That's why he took Geto's body.
So you were saying that was Ultimate Uzumaki. Ultimate Uzumaki, I thought, was the big bang attack that he did earlier. So maybe this is Cursed Uzumaki? Oh my god, we are so confused.
No, Ultimate Uzumaki is supposed to use all of that energy that he's got stored up, right?
Okay. Oh, well, I thought that was the big chasm he creates in chapter 135.
Yeah, it is. But that's supposed to use all the spirits, isn't it?
That's what he says. Not sure.
But then all the spirits leave his body anyway, so they didn't get used.
They did not, as a matter of fact. I think out of all of this, Uzumaki's the most confusing part. So hold on. He broke the seals on cursed objects. Does that mean all the cursed objects went back to being curses? Like, does that mean everything Maki usually holds is now back to being a curse, for example?
Maybe. I never thought, like, they never explained about cursed like, they just said, oh, this has a curse in it, and it's super strong now. And I'm like, isn't that good? Like, it's always seemed like a good thing.
I mean, maybe they did explain it, and the anime either went through it fast, or we just weren't paying enough attention. People seem to know what's going on, I'm sure.
I mean, I have to do algebra to figure out whether somebody can be repelled, pulled, or what type of curse. Like, I think what's fucking me up more than anything in this manga is just the word curse energy.
It is used
a lot. Curse is a cursed word. in this.
It's becoming nonsense because it's true. Because you have cursed users, cursed energy, reverse cursed energy, cursed.
It's like if in the Nen power system, every aspect of Nen was just called Nen.
See, and what they did smart that they use Ko and Yo, like they use like
and Ryu and
Yeah.
like they have different names for all the techniques, but this one is just curse.
it's
Curse,
true.
curse.
It's curse technique blank. Curse technique blank. It does kind of. There's a lot of words being thrown out. The vocabulary here is sometimes hard to keep track of.
And so, also, he says like after all of that, we're gonna go back to the golden age of curse techniques, which like I'm like, doesn't that the powers that you use? Like that's the powers you use.
He released. So apparently, my takeaway: the Heian era was like peak curse zone. And I'm sure Gojo mentions that in one text bubble in chapter 12 or some shit, right? And he's brought the world back to that state now by doing these crazy sequence of events that we don't fully comprehend.
I think what his goal is.
Well, his goal is to get rid of every non.
No,
Well, yeah.
is to evolve humans into stronger curse technique users by whittling them down from strong curses.
Absolutely. There's very much a survival of the fittest. If you don't have cursed energy and it's not strong, you're gonna die. But it's like it sort of made sense in his flashback where it's like it's a world that's going to be dominated by the strong, and we won't have to worry about weak curses. Like because everyone's going to be a cursed user, there's going to be less cursed energy in the world because it was explained that cursed users don't produce that negative energy that normal humans do. It's like normal humans radiate cursed energy while cursed users keep it inside of them. So by creating that world of cursed users, it's going to spawn less like minor curses throughout the world. That's his overall plan. It's a cool plan. It's still weird though, and we haven't talked about this. Like Geto and Gojo have such a good backstory. I don't think it's as compelling to make Geto this Kozo guy from the past that I have no connection with. You know, like I had a connection with Geto. Like he had a great arc with Gojo. I don't really know this guy. I don't know why I should care. Like why should I care that this guy is trying to bring back curses? Or maybe that's the point, right? Because maybe that Geto wouldn't have done this. He would have killed off like all the humans instead, while this guy's trying to bring back the era of curses. So like maybe they're doing something like maybe this isn't what Geto would have done. Like he's doing something worse now because he's like creating this new era of curses. I don't know.
I'm looking at the wiki, and even the wiki doesn't explain this shit. Like it just says those vows became null when he obtained Suguru Geto's body. Okay.
What does that mean?
What, like, they became null, but they're just now coming out, and this guy's been in Geto's body for God knows how long, so it doesn't make any fucking sense.
It's been like 6 months to a year that he's been in the body. It's not super long. Now, the 150-year-old guy has been jumping bodies this whole time, I think, is the takeaway.
The only thing I've managed to make sense is the cursed objects and stuff.
Yeah, explain it to me.
So, he did two things to the non-curse users. He marked some of their brain with like a curse technique.
That I get.
But he also had some ingest cursed objects like a Sakuna's finger.
Yeah, and that's what he did with Junpei.
So, they became a vessel for other curses to just take over other humans. So he made curse users and curses.
Right. That part of the plan, we got it. Also, Fushiguro's sister is one of the marked ones, so that's cool.
Yeah. So I got that, and then
Tengen Barrier is the part I think that breaks my brain more. Why did she bring it up? What?
That has to do with curse techniques only exist in Japan.
Yeah.
So he's making curses go across the world. How
did he break Tengen's barrier?
He threw his hand on the ground. That's all you have to do is slap the earth.
Man, for fuck's sake, I'll slap the earth right now. I'll do it.
Like, he's just gonna slap the earth.
Just kind of.
I think because he ate Mahito.
I mean, that's how you can do Idol Transfiguration. We never got an answer why Mahito turned on him last second, but it's fine.
Nope. I think he just literally forgot to explain some shit.
You know, like, all in all, I was gonna say, and this is a hot take. Let's wrap up our thoughts on this arc, because
hot take. This is bad. The last 4 chapters of the Shibuya arc are absolute shit.
I don't think they're absolute shit. There's cool moments, but there is a lot of, like, if you haven't been keeping up with every detail of the story, you're gonna get really lost, IMO.
I think
because I'm someone who book clubs this with another person, so, like, while we don't have the best understanding of the story, we talk about it enough to where some points will stick, you know, like, so it's like, if there's definitely going to be a huge percent of people lower than me that are reading this chapter and also getting confused, I feel. But
it's kind of sad too, because I guarantee a lot of people who, like, have been reading still probably understand this better than we do.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, by seeing the repercussions of this, it'll make a lot more sense to them.
Yeah.
They always do this, like, in My Hero does this a lot, where, like, a big event will happen, and then next chapter they'll be like, so here's they actually, like, explain it, like, they do a tell don't show where it's like, here's the actual implications of the event that happened last chapter. You know what? Sometimes you're reading a weekly manga, or, like, you're reading multiple volumes of a manga, you need a chapter like that to kind of summarize things for you.
Mm-hmm.
But, okay, all in all, this arc, to me, is, like, I thought it was excellent. It's one of my favorite shonen arcs. Like, it is insanely good. I think the ending is rough, like we were mentioning. But, I mean, I'm not going to let the last 3 or so chapters of a solid, like, what was this, 50-chapter banger? I think it's exactly 50 chapters before, like, because the title of the chapters are Shibuya Incident Part whatever. Yeah, it ends on Part 52. So this is a 52-chapter arc. The last 3 chapters, not so hot, but everything else is fire. It confuses me sometimes with the powers, but the actual storytelling, the stakes, the action was all top-notch. To me, this was like a Chimera Ant arc, if I'm being honest. I know that's sacrilegious, but and Tyler just redid the Chimera Ant arc, so he is peak performance right now on how good the Chimera Ant arc is. But I think I can make that comparison because it's got the same level of, like, tense moments, just, like, banger after banger after banger, good plotting, good strategizing, cool powers. It's got all of that. But it does it in good pacing with characters I prefer. Because I really like the Jujutsu Kaisen characters, while in the Chimera Ant arc, even you might agree, Tyler, there's about half of the characters in that arc are not great. I like the main core group of, like, Knuckles, Shoot, Moral, and Gon and Killua. I don't really care for many of the ants, you know? I like Komugi and the King, and that's about it. But those aren't that many characters. Meanwhile, in this arc, like, all the major characters I like. Not some of these side characters that show up just for the end of the fight here, but, like, every other character, the ones that are doing the fights, the enemies they're fighting, they're all really good. How do you feel? What is your last review of the arc?
I remember why I blocked off so much of the earlier arc now. It's because those last 4 chapters, I'm just like, what the fuck is going on?
It takes a lot of brain power. Honestly, in the comments, tell us if we're fucking stupid. Like, please. Like, clearly we are misreading something, right? Like,
Will reads a lot of manga. I don't. We read books, though, often. Like, we read Stormlight.
And, like in Stormlight, it's like, oh, I got confused because I dozed off while listening to the audiobook. I will fully admit, like, if I missed something, it's because I literally was too busy, like, I was focusing on a drive, or I was, like, I just zoned off, but I got caught up after when they explain it. In here, I'm reading every bubble, and I got lost.
Yeah, so...
I don't know.
Oh, man.
But, I guess...
Fun arc. Now I get to read the next one and wait another 4 months.
No. Okay, we're gonna read 20 chapters, and you're gonna wait for me, and I'll also read 20 chapters.
All right, sounds good.
All right. Well, I hope y'all enjoyed. We got a little lost there near the end. I wonder how long we were just confused on the last chapter. Oh my god, we did this for an hour 20.
Yeah.
I think we started talking about the last stretch of chapters at like 40 minutes in. No.
Yeah.
Jesus. Okay. All right. Catch y'all later. Bye-bye.
Bye.